What is up, everyone? My name is Jasper, and in today's video, I got a special guest for you guys. It's Adam Smith from Niche Website Builders, and we're going to be talking about age domains today. So,
Hey,
Adam,
Jasper.
why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah,
So, why don't you
so
introduce yourself and give a little background?
sure. I'm Adam Smith from Niche Website Builders. I'm just going to turn off Slack there because I can hear it in the background. And we're a digital marketing agency. We're mainly a content based agency. We do content creation. We also do link building. Shopman Skyscraper or Haro. And we also do kind of done for you websites as well, where we'll help you pick the niche, do the keyword research, write the content, build the website, etc. And as part of that, we also offer that service on age domains or expired domains, which we're going to talk a little bit more about today.
Yeah, nice. So, yeah, today's video is really going to be all about age domains, and I think the first question that most people have is, why should you even start with an age domain? Like, what are the benefits of it?
Yeah, it's a good question, and probably even just before that, we should probably just cover like what is an age domain, like why are they special, why would we even want to
Yeah.
build on one, and basically an age domain or an expired domain, people use the terms kind of interchangeably. They kind of mean the same thing. There's some technical nuances, but what it means is the website used to be another website. And usually for a number of years, like most age domains are 10, 15, some of them are even 20 years old. And they were another business for a long time. They had a web presence. They were, pushing out content or running their business online. And then for whatever reason, the reasons can vary from the owner passes away in some cases through to they stop running the business. We've seen somewhere, there's clearly been a divorce, like a husband and wife team run the business. There was a divorce and they've not renewed the domain name. So, and whatever reason, the domain name doesn't get renewed. And then if it's got SEO value, and by what I mean by that is, does it have a good backlink profile? Typically, what will happen is it will go into auction, and then people like us SEOs typically will buy them to build a website and repurpose that website to move forward. And I think there's a couple of main pros for using an age domain. One is obviously it's got history with Google. Like for websites been around for 20 years, it's already got history with Google. And we'll talk a little bit later on about relevancy. But if you build a website on top that's relevant to what it used to be, you can kind of maintain that history and maintain that relationship with Google. It's not like you're starting from fresh and Google's like, who's this brand new domain? I've never seen it before. It's just registered yesterday, kind of thing. And then for us, the other big
Hmm.
pro of using an age domain is that you've already got a backlink profile, and depending on the age domain, it can be a really really strong backlink profile. So you're not starting from scratch. You're not, you're starting from a position of authority, which allows you to go after more competitive keywords from the off, for example. And also, it's cost effective. Like some of these backlink profiles, either you couldn't buy them, they've got links from Washington Post, New York Times, Business Insider. Like you'd really struggle to buy those kinds of links, and even if you could, it would cost you way, way more than it would to buy an aged domain. So I guess that's my quick rundown of the pros of using an age domain.
Yeah, so you basically just get sort of a head start on some things.
Yeah, that's it. And that all sounds
Cool.
great, but I'll just point out like age domains are not a silver bullet either. It's not like you can buy an age domain, take all the history and all the authority and put up a 5-page website and hope to make a ton of money. Like you still have to do the same work as you would with a normal website, just you've got a head start.
Yeah, that was my next question because an age domain is not like the way to go straight from right from the beginning. It was actually my follow-up question, like like who's suitable for an age domain? Like, should you start with it as your first website, or should you go with it later on? Maybe we're going a little too
Yeah,
fast now, but that would be my follow-up question. Yeah.
yeah, no, it's a good question. I think it depends because there definitely is some nuances when you are building with an age domain, and it depends on the domain. So, for example, one of the nuances are an old, like, depending on the domain, it might have had lots of referring domains, lots of backlinks to individual pages. And if you don't recreate those individual pages or redirect them when you build your new website, you're going to lose the power of those links, those referring domains. So if you're not technically savvy enough to kind of identify what those are and then to set up redirects or to create content on those old URLs, then there's definitely that kind of like step where if you can't do that, then probably you shouldn't be working with an age domain, or you should get seek some help. You know, someone like us who can do that for you. But mainly, I see lots of people are starting on age domains mainly just because it gives you that boost, and the main boost it gives you is just time horizon. Like rather than it taking 6 to 8 months for your content to start coming out of the sandbox. The sandbox. I know we don't know if we still believe in that or not,
Yeah.
but realistically, new websites take some time to gain traction. Typically, you can see that happen quicker on an age domain. So lots of people are starting them. Beginners are starting to use age domains as well.
Yeah, well, it definitely sounds interesting. I recently had a site that was in the sandbox for like 10 to 12 months. So just giving that a
Yeah.
little head start and having it out of the sandbox like 3 or 4 months earlier would have been amazing.
Yeah. The other good thing about that as well is that uh, like all across the Facebook groups now and across YouTube, we're seeing people having issues getting new content index, especially on like fresh domains. I don't know if you saw that with your project, like struggling
No,
to
this
get
one
like
was
pages
started back
indexed.
in December 2020.
Okay, yeah, but I think there definitely is or does seem to be a problem at the moment with indexing content. And with an age domain, you can still sometimes get those issues, but they're less frequent because once you've set up your age domain, you can log into Search Console, you can have a look at the crawl stats data, and you can basically see that Google gives a higher priority to age domains. They'll come and crawl the website more than a fresh domain because it's got history. They know the website, they've been there before. So typically, you get less indexing problems than people are having on fresh domains today as well.
Yeah, yeah, those indexing problems are pretty problematic. I mean, the site I just talked about didn't have them because I started it in December of 2020. And well, back then, I don't think the indexing issues were as bad as they are now. But I recently started
Yeah.
another site, and that one just nothing happened. Like none were even showing in the discovered not index section. So yeah, I mean it's a big problem right now.
Have you tried any tools for that? Just slightly off topic. Have you tried like the Rank API instant indexer?
I didn't try any of those tools, but one thing that surprisingly just helped is someone told me that I should just go to Azoic, don't even enable the ads, but just change the name servers. And they claimed that that would work. And I mean, I was kind of skeptic because what would it help? But to be fair, like a week later, basically everything started to get indexed.
Oh, that's interesting. I've never heard that before.
Yeah. No, I haven't heard it either,
Oh,
but it worked for me. It worked for some other people. So it is an interesting approach. The site still hasn't gotten any ads on it yet. So basically just using Zope's name servers and that's it.
I wonder if it's because they like when you put things through Ezoic, they have their own CDN network as well, right? So I wonder if
Hmm.
somewhere along the line they're triggering some kind of I don't know something that I don't know. I don't know how that works, but maybe yeah, it's interesting.
It's definitely interesting. And I mean, if any other websites of mine start to have the same problem, I'm just going to switch them over. If it works, it works. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
I definitely tried that approach over one of the indexing tools. I think we talked about it on a live stream recently, and there was lots of people in the chat were saying they've used them and they work great. And then it's almost like this divide of I've used it, it's great, I'm going to use it for everything going forward. And then there's the other camp of that's not what it's meant for. Google puts that out for kind of news websites to index their content straight away if you've got a news website, and what's the long term consequences. So yeah, I don't know. I
Yeah.
kind of fall into that second camp a little bit.
I'm pretty risk averse when it comes to my website, and just looking at some of these or watching some of these videos about rank math and those kind of tools. Just hearing the downsides
Yeah.
and that they don't recommend it or don't. I mean, things can go wrong because it's not made for just blog posts. So, I mean, any option that doesn't include something that may backfire on the site is much better for me. So this is Oak approach. I mean, it works great.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah. So back to the H domain. So it's basically like a little head start. But once you have the domain, like what is the approach? Do you just buy the domain and start publishing content on that, or do you? I saw someone else like buy an H domain and redirect it to a fresh domain to get the link juice out of it. Like, what's the right approach?
Yeah, there's a couple of different approaches, and it depends on the project. So, like I see three main uses for age domains. One is to build your money site on, like you get it, you build your site on it, you publish content, and away to go. That's not always viable though, because like when you buy an age domain, you can't pick the domain name, right? So if it's got amazing backlinks and it's super relevant to what you want to build on, but it's got a horrible domain name, like you either build on that and you're stuck with a horrible domain name, or you build on a fresh domain and then you redirect the age domain in. So I think that's use number two of doing that. And then the third one is you've already got an established website already that you want to add some power to. So you find an age domain that's relevant, and then you 301 redirect that to your established website. And but this again, there's all kinds of little nuances. Like you don't just want to redirect it to the homepage, for example. We can talk all about kind of 301 redirects later on if you want, or
Sure.
like we could probably do a full episode just on 301 redirects if your
There's a lot
audience
I
are
can learn.
interested in that, because you talk about, yeah, there's so much about 301 redirects we could talk about. But yeah, those are the three main kind of uses I see: just build in, redirect into a fresh domain, or redirect into your main website.
Cool. So you guys send me over a little sheet with a sort of case study, and I'm not sure if you've got that up right now. But
Yes, I can for sure.
yeah, I think it's like kind of nice to have a sort of example on what an approach could look like.
Yes. Well, I'll share this with you then, because and I don't know if I can share my screen on here
I can
actually.
edit it in afterwards if necessary.
Yes. So hopefully, yes. So we can see. Can you see that now?
Oh yeah, I hear you again. My sound just disappeared for some reason.
Yeah. So you should be able to see
Yeah,
the presentation here now, right?
yeah,
Cool. So before we run through this presentation, I just kind of I just want to caveat that this domain is well, there was a ton of resources and effort put into this domain up front. This is definitely not for beginners. When we get to the end slide, you'll see that this spend on this one project coming close to $200,000 over the course of a 12-month period. So there was a ton of resources and effort put in. So don't expect these kind of results if you're just going to put 100 pieces of content. But it just does demonstrate how how age domains work, different approaches you can take with them. Yeah. So this is one of our case studies. It was a website that was built on an age domain initially, a strong age domain, and that domain I think was around a DR45 or something like that initially. So it was an age domain. It had been around for a long time. A DR45, really good links. And then over the course of 12 months, we acquired 6 additional age domains, which, and I've got the DRs of these a little bit further on, that we also 301 redirected in. So we powered it up. It's like a DR69 now or something, due to those link building. And then we also published, or the website had, over 900 pieces of content, which is about 2.1 million words of content. So it was a crazy content velocity,
that's a lot. Yeah.
redirecting additional domains into it. Yeah. Um, so the first thing, kind of just to cover off on there, is how we did the keyword research. So doing keyword research for 2.1 million words of content, or like 900 articles, is daunting, to be
Yeah.
honest. So just kind of want to cover off the methodology for our keyword research. And the tomb raiding method is a term that we coined for our own kind of method. Essentially, it means look for the weakest competitors in your space and then tomb raid their best performing content. So kind of what does that look like? Essentially, it means you first step is compile a massive list of all the competitors that are in your space, and the bigger the list, the better to start with. And then from there, you want to pull out some domain metrics. So you want to pull out UR and DR from Ahrefs. You want to pull out trust flow and citation flow from Majestic, and DA and PA from Moz. And then you want to add them all together to give you kind of like an overview of how strong each of those competitor domains are. And then you also want to put your domain in there and order it highest to lowest, just to kind of see where you sit in that landscape of competitors. Like, especially when you work with an age domain, like, is this domain as strong as 50% of all the competitors I can find in the space? Gives you like a good overview of kind of where you sit. And then from there, what you want to do is all of the domains that are weaker than you, and like you probably want to start from the bottom up, so you start with the weakest ones. You want to start looking at what kind of traffic levels they get. So you can use Ahrefs or SEMrush to pull out their traffic scores. And really, what you're looking for are almost anomalies, like standout weaker competitors, where they're getting a ton of traffic in comparison to their website strength. Like the DR, for example, is a site getting 100,000 visits and it's a DR5, and you're starting with a DR45, for example. That's a great example. And what you can do then is, once you've shortlisted all those standout kind of anomaly sites, you then start looking at what pieces of content are working best for those guys, because you know they're driving a lot of traffic. It's not because the domain authority, it's because they've done something right with their own page, with either with they've selected the right keywords or they've structured the content right, or Google likes that content. And then essentially you turmeric that, you compile your list of the best performing pieces of content of those weaker competitors. You look at the structure, you pull out the H tags of those competitors, you see what topics they've included, and that becomes your article brief. You end up with a list of topics that you know are driving traffic to weak competitors, and you've literally got the structure there to copy, essentially, or to structure your content the same. So that's the methodology we used, and in this case, the niche is very expansive. It's very large. It allowed us to make a content plan for hundreds and almost thousands of
Yeah,
posts.
you do kind of need a large niche for 900 articles. So
Yes, and this is an example basically. So at this point, we'd already redirected in some domains. So the clients, this is the client domain at the top. It's like a DR45. At this point, getting around 40,000 visits, and then we found a DR38, so a weaker kind of website that's getting almost 300,000. It's like a standout, almost like an anomaly competitor that's doing really well in the space. And then we reverse engineered what their top performing content was, and that became part of our 900 posts.
yeah, that's an interesting strategy.
Um, Yeah, yeah. I should probably say as well that that strategy only works if you are starting with an age domain, or if you are starting with an established website. You can't do that strategy if you're starting with a fresh site, because you're always going to be at the bottom of that list in terms of the kind of competitor landscape. So it only works with authority.
Yeah, and I assume that if once you start growing the site,
Um,
after that, say your DR is like 40 and you took everyone below your DR 40, your DR starts to grow, so you can take on the higher ones again.
Exactly. It's almost like a race to the top then. You can perform that research over and over again as you move up that list until you're at the top, and then by that point you should be making a ton of money and you should be the authority in the space
Yeah,
if you've
exactly.
if you've made it to the top there. Um, and then just a little note on site structure here. So we built the website, and there's just a couple of things, like three things which I want to talk about. One is just the homepage layout. When you're working with age domains, most of the referring domains are to the homepage by just that's just natural. Like you'd expect most of the links to go to the homepage, and you want to set up your homepage so it links out to either your best performing content, the most important pieces, or the categories that you've set up on the website, because you've got all that power on that one page and you want to kind of distribute it through to the rest of the website. If you don't do that, you're going to have a really strong homepage, but it's not really passing that power through. Um, Category page structure, basically we set up custom category pages, and the only thing custom about them really is that they're not paginated. So with a WordPress category page, you go there, and if you've got 100 pieces of content in one category, you've got 10 on page one, and you go to the bottom, you click page 2, page 3, page 4. But we set them up so they're all on one page, and the whole reason of doing this is that we then have a really low click depth, which is a fancy way of saying how many clicks from the homepage do you need to go before you get to that piece of content. And if you've got like pagination, for example, you have to click from the homepage to the category page, then page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4. And some pieces of content end up being really far away from the homepage. But having them all on one page just means that they're only ever no more than 2 or 3 clicks away. And again, that's important when you're working with an age domain, because you want to pass the power from the homepage through to the pieces of content as much as you
Yeah,
can.
just have as little clicks as possible.
Um, and then menu structure. Exactly, that's it. As little friction for the user, and then also as little friction for Google. Because when Google comes and crawls the website, they don't want to be clicking 10 pages away from the homepage to get to a piece of content. You just want to make it as easy as you can for Google and your reader to find the content, basically.
Cool.
And then just a little note on menu structure. We never go very deep on the menu structure. We try and have high level categories. And the way we set up our websites is that the URL structure, the permalink structure, we don't include category in there. It's never adam.com/category/post name. That's because typically we will start with very broad categories and maybe 2 or 3 broad categories. And then as the website grows, you can then amend that category structure and amend that menu structure. So for example, if we were building a website that's about sports, we might literally start with a category called sports. And then as you fill it out, we might then build a second category, which is called tennis. And all of our tennis posts would sit in there, and we'd move them over. And then when we build soccer, we'd add another category and menu item called soccer. But we wouldn't start with, sports, ball sports as a subcategory, racket sports as a subcategory of balls, etc. We just don't go very deep on them. So redirecting other age domains. So this is a good example of where we built the site on an age domain, and then we also redirected domains in. And in here you can see this is just an example. So the site was launched in December 2021. Sorry,
2020,
December
I think.
2020.
Yeah.
So it's about 15 months old now. Yeah. So it's about 15 months old now, and you can see here we launched it in late December, and literally a few weeks after we launched it, we redirected our first age domain, and you can literally see here in Ahrefs the number of referring domains jump up. It's been steady, and then this is the number of referring domains, and that's the first redirect essentially. And then it says here we acquired 2 additional domains. We actually acquired 6 over the course of 12 months, and this is what that looks like. So December, we redirected in the first domain. It was a DR39, 319 referring domains. And then we did one a month essentially, and we skipped a month in April because we couldn't find one that was relevant enough. But essentially, we tried to find one a month for the first 6 months. And just a note on these domains, the average price for these domains was around $3,000 to $3,500 for each of them as well. So this was not a cheap exercise, but it allowed him to go from like a DR45 to a DR, I think it's like 69
Oh, wow.
in the course of 12 months without doing much other link building apart from this.
Yeah, that's pretty insane.
Yeah, it is. And it's such a cost-effective way of doing link building as well, because even though these are $3,500 each or $3,000 each, if you divide it by the number of referring domains you get, it actually works out cheaper than if you were to buy or try and do outreach yourself to try and get the same number of links. And then when you also factor in the quality of the links, like I say, some of these have links from like Washington Post, the New York Times, which you wouldn't really be able to build or buy anyway. Like it's just such a really cost-effective way of
Yeah,
link
that's the
building.
way I never really thought about it. I saw Carl Robin mention that it's actually just a very cheap way of getting backlinks.
Yeah, I guess I'm full of caveats today, but the caveat is you have to make sure that the domain that you're redirecting in is a really good domain. You have to do the same due diligence and same vetting process as you would on a site you were going to build the website on. And it has to be relevant. There's no point redirecting in a food domain into a sports domain, even if the backlink profile of the food domain is great. Like it just doesn't match in terms of relevance, and you'll definitely end up hurting your site. So make sure the quality is good, do your due diligence on the domain, and make sure it's highly relevant. And then this is the redirect process. So I kind of hinted about this earlier. What we don't do is just redirect those domains to the homepage. It looks unnatural. Like what we try and do here is recreate what an actual real business would do if they acquired another business. So the first thing we would do on your main website is set up an acquisition page, and that page basically covers, it states that you've purchased or acquired the other domain that you're going to redirect in, a little bit about your main business, and then a long piece of content. I call this a skyscraper piece. And it can be anything from 1,000 words to 4 or 5,000 words, but that broadly talks about the topic that you are going to be redirecting in. So, just going back to my sport example, if you had a website all about soccer and you wanted to expand into tennis, that piece of content, and you bought a tennis domain to redirect in, that piece of content would essentially talk broadly about tennis. It could be the history of tennis and how it's evolved over the last 20 years or something. And in that piece of content, you want to internally link through to all of the pieces of content about tennis that you have on your website as much as you can. It's the first couple of times you do it, it feels doesn't feel natural to be writing content just for the purpose of internal linking. Um, but but you get it gets better with practice essentially. And then you redirect in that age domain to that acquisition page. And what that does, it powers up that one page. It's really relevant because we have a domain about tennis and you're redirecting it into a piece of content that talks about tennis in depth. And then all that power that goes there is passed through via the internal links to all of your tennis pieces of content. And it powers them up
Yeah,
essentially.
this also just gives a lot more freedom in your actual topic because you can just get an age domain on tennis but have a fresh domain on sports and you can still get the same sort of benefits.
Exactly. And then once that's done, we always recommend that you put out a press release as well, just to say that your main site has acquired the domain of the other site. And that just again is for legitimacy. If a real business acquired another real business, they would obviously put out a press release. They'd want people to know and they'd want to shout about it. And we're just trying to mimic to Google that this is a real business acquiring another business, and we're doing it in the way that a real business would. We're doing it for different purposes, obviously, but that's the way a real business goes about it.
Yeah, I never really heard anyone mention the press release or even the acquisition page.
We did. So I mean, I don't want to. I don't want to plug our live stream, but every Tuesday we do an Age Domain Tuesday live stream, and our topic this week, you can have a look, go back and have a look on our YouTube channel, was literally acquisition pages, where we broke down the structure of an acquisition page. We found two examples of in the wild, like actual real acquisition pages that we looked at and broke down and examined. One was like typically like this a little bit, and the other one was for an e-commerce website, so you could see the difference. Um, but yeah, lots of people don't kind of cover this in detail. They just say make an acquisition page and don't tell you what it is. And we've had loads of questions, so we thought we'd just try and cover the topic and get it out there. This is what it should look like.
Yeah, that's helpful because to be honest, I am not sure what I would have written there.
Yeah, yeah, we get asked all the time, like, oh, what does an acquisition page? What should it be? And this is essentially what it should be.
Yeah, so for anyone interested, definitely go check that video.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And then this is just kind of like an overview of the timeline. So when I mentioned it was very aggressive with the content, like this is the content that was added. So the site was launched with 150,000 words of content. Nothing was added in January, and essentially like, the site was started to bed in and get traction in January. And we're like, hey, this is actually doing really really well, incredibly quick, like very very quick.
Yeah, that's really
This is the
fast.
kind of site that you probably want to pour some fuel on the fire. So in February we then started adding more content, and March we skipped a month in April, and then kind of by the May June time, the site was already generating enough revenue to pay for most of the content expansion, which was really
Wow.
cool. It's all monetized through display ads. There's no affiliate or very little affiliate content on here, so it's almost all display ads. But from almost May onwards, it's almost paying for itself in terms of new content and expansion, which is crazy,
That's pretty insane. That's like
crazy
6 months or
fast.
so.
Yeah, very fast. And like I say, this kind of website doesn't come around very often. Like, don't
No.
expect these results with your first expired domain. You're probably not going to put 500,000 words of content on in the first 4 months, and you're probably not going to redirect in 4 domains in the first 4 months anyway. So, but this is just to show like what can be done if you have the budget and resources to go at this kind of speed. And this is kind of what it looks like. So the first couple of months, even though we know they were taken off really quick on this graph, they look tiny, and that's because it scaled so fast. So we launched the site in December 2021, and by January 2022, so literally 12 months later, I was getting 3.3 million page views and was doing 40,000 a month with Mediavine. So it was yeah,
Yeah,
a
that's
crazy
insane.
kind of growth curve there.
3.3 million in just a year. That's pretty incredible, yeah.
Yeah, but this is also how much was spent though. So you've also got to factor in like what was spent. So the domain that was bought that we built the website on, we didn't acquire that. The customer came to us with that. It's funny actually. We watch a lot of auctions like GoDaddy auction for like domains that are upcoming in the week that are expiring. And we were watching this domain, me and my partner Mark, and we were like, this is a good domain. And then it went way past what we would consider paying for, and we're like, wow, who paid that kind of money for that domain? And then literally the next day, our client emailed us and said, hey, I bought a new domain last night. And we're like, oh, we were watching that. Like, well, it was you.
That's a
So the domain
coincidence.
was expensive to start with. It, um, and then six additional domains was around 18,000, and then about 150,000 on content. So all in all, the spend in the first 12 months was 185,000. And then if we kind of look at the valuation, just on based on January's revenue, just at a 35 or 40x multiple, we're talking about a crazy ROI here, and this doesn't include like the monthly income because it's been reinvested back into kind of content. So yeah, this is kind of what can be done. We're putting out more and more case studies over the next couple of months of more, I don't know, realistic or achievable, where you've just got 100,000 words of content or 200,000 words of content over 12 months instead. So so keep an eye out for those, and maybe I'll come back on and we'll run through a normal case study where
Yeah.
someone hasn't got $200,000 to drop in the first year. And yeah, and we'll come on and talk about those results. But I think this is just a great example of what can be achieved with starting on a primary an age domain and redirecting more in with a good um, keyword research strategy, and then an ability to push out hundreds of thousands of words of content every month.
Yeah, yeah, this is definitely an insane case study. But one more follow-up question I had is you mentioned that you follow these auctions and stuff. Is this where you usually get the H domains, or are there any other websites where you get them?
Yeah, so we partnered with Odys, ODYS, odys.global. They're like a domain marketplace. I think they've got over 1,000 domains in their marketplace now, age domains. And you can go there and have a look. They do a level of vetting for you. They do a nice write-up of the history of the website, the metrics and stuff. Um, or that you can always try and find your own domains in auction. The only problem with that is you have to do all of your own due diligence. You have to do all of your own vetting, and if you buy a domain and you find out that it's got issues, you've got no one to go back to. If you bought a domain from Odys, for example, and you found out there was some issues with it, maybe you can always go back to Odys. But if you bought a domain from auction, the buck stops with you. So if you haven't done your due diligence right, you're left holding a domain that's not great.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess there's a lot to kind of cover when it comes to due diligence. So I don't think we can go completely in depth into that. But is it like something like some global explanation on what you can do to do a sort of good due diligence?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like what are the top level topics you look for? Is that what you
Yeah,
mean?
yeah. So
Yeah, for sure. So there's definitely things you want to look at when you are looking at an age domain. The first things you want to look at is you want to use Wayback, like archive.org, to have a little look what the website was like. Go back in time. It allows you to go back in time and have a look to see what the history of a website was. So that's where you almost always want to start is what was this website? What business was it? What kind of content did it have? And is that in a niche that I want to build a website about? Because if it's not, then you can just get rid of it straight away. Like I say, if you want to build a site about tennis, you don't want to look for an age domain that's about food because it just doesn't make sense.
no.
So always look for way back. And then from there, you're going to need some tools. Really, you're going to need some paid tools, like the main one being Ahrefs. And just quickly, like without going into too much detail about them all, you want to look at the anchor text profile of the links that point to that age domain, and you want to make sure that they're brandable primarily, and that there's nothing in there that looks like they've bought links or nothing that looks dodgy or not quite right. So there's nothing to do with porn in there. There's nothing to do with Viagra. There's nothing to do with like jerseys or anything like that. You just want to make sure that that anchor text looks like a natural website. A natural website would. You also want to have a little look at the referring domains. So obviously you want to look at the top level metrics, what the UR and DR is and stuff. But you also want to go through and have a little look at the referring domains. What are the websites that link to that expired domain? And here we kind of classify them into two different groups. One is kind of like editorial type websites, the likes of New York Times, Washington Post, Business Insider, etc. If you've got those, that's amazing. But you also want to have a good mix of niche relevant domains as well. So if it's a tennis website, you want Business Insider and all that, but you might also want tennis.com or whatever good tennis websites are out there linking back. And ideally you want a mixture of both. If you can only get niche relevant ones, that's still okay. But ideally, you should have some editorial ones in there as well. That kind of gives it a little bit more of a boost. Um, Another thing you want to look at is the best pages by links. So again, this is a report in Ahrefs, and it just tells you of all those referring domains, what pages do they point to? Like, do they all go to the home page? Are there 20 links pointing to a page that no longer exists that you might have to recreate, for example? So, if it was an old tennis website, did they have a piece of content that talked about tennis rankings? And of that, they got 20 referring domains there. Well, you want to keep those 20 referring domains, and you need to figure out how can I make that piece of content again on my website. You don't just want to go and take the data from way back, because in terms of copyright, the old owner of the website still owns the copyright of that piece of content. So you need to figure out what you're going to do. Are you going to rewrite it in your own words? Are you going to repurpose it? You need to pull up a plan together for that. And then the other thing, which is very important in terms of due diligence, is trademarks. I think I see a lot of people falling foul of trademark issues. You can search for free in the US or the US trademark database to see has a trademark been placed on the business name or the domain name. And I'm not a trademark specialist or lawyer because there's different types of trademarks. You can get a design mark and a name mark, etc. So if we see a domain or a business has any kind of trademark and it's live and active, we just walk away, because I don't understand the difference between could I build a website if it has a design mark versus a name mark, etc. So any kind of live trademark, we just
Yeah,
pass.
it's better
I'd
not to
recommend you do the same unless you're a trademark lawyer, for example. Yeah,
yeah, better not to walk that thin line and just get screwed over later on.
exactly. I saw a domain that came up for sale this week on one of the brokers, and it had a trademark in the name, and I was like, oh wow, that's trouble. That's trouble down the line. That is.
Yeah, yeah. I just recently, like I believe it was this morning, I was looking at some listings at Motion Invest, and one had Dyson and then something behind it, and Dyson is like a pretty big brand, and I was like, yeah,
That's
how
the one
does
I'm
this
talking
one get
about. Yeah.
through? I'm not really sure how they do that, but I wouldn't want to risk it.
I think they've taken the listing down now. I think a lot of people pointed that out, and I think they said it was a mistake, and they've taken the listing down.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, that's kind of overview.
Yeah, interesting. So are there any other like major red flags like trademarks or like bad domains pointing maybe?
Yeah, anything that just basically looks unnatural. So, you know, like I say, make sure the anchor text looks natural. Have a look at the referring domains. Make sure that there's nothing dodgy in there. But usually, what you're looking for in the referring domains, rather than anything dodgy, you're looking for the quality of the domains that are pointing there. Um, and then I think a major one is just relevance. Like, the more relevant you can get it to what you want to build on, the better. If it was a website that talked about, I don't know, watch reviews, and you want to build a watch review website on it, awesome. Like, that's one-to-one relevancy. If it was a website that talked about, I don't know, grandfather clocks, and you want to build a website about watches on it, there's loose relevancy there, but it's definitely not as close as a website about watches to watches, for
Yeah.
example. So the closer you can get that relevancy, the better.
Yeah, so that's, I mean, I've learned a lot in this talk. Age domains is something that's really new to me. Maybe I should have mentioned that in the beginning, but I really haven't had any experience with age domains. So this was a great talk, and I really hope that the people that are listening to this are also learning a lot.
Awesome. Yeah, and I guess if anybody has any questions or they want us to delve deeper into more topics, I'm more than happy to come back on. Or if anybody's got any kind of questions, pop them in the chat as well. I'm active on YouTube. I'll come back and have a little look at some questions once this goes live and try and answer them best I can as well.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you over. I mean, you mentioned that there's like a whole episode worth of 3-1 redirect talk, so we could definitely dive deeper.
Perfect. And you're going to be coming on our podcast as well to tell
Yeah.
our audience about your journey with your website investing soon, which is exciting.
Yes, looking forward to it.
Awesome. Great. Is there any other questions you've got, Jasper, about age domains or how they're used or anything? Or
Not from me. I'm kind of looking forward to see what people in the comment section have to ask. But I mean, I've learned a lot, and I think I don't have any follow-up questions for now.
Awesome. That's great. Well, thanks for having me on, and thanks for the opportunity to get introduced to your audience. And yeah, hopefully they have some questions. I'll come back on and we'll do some kind of follow up video.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for coming over. It was a great talk, and yeah, as I mentioned a few times, I learned a lot. So that's really great. Yeah. So I want to
Awesome.
thank you all for
Thanks,
watching.
Jasper. I will catch you soon. Oh,
Oh, no, no problem. I thought I would just do a little outro. So I want
go,
to thank you all
go
for
for it. Go
watching,
for it.
and please make sure to check out Niche Websites Builders and their services if you haven't heard of them, which I kind of doubt if you're watching my channel. But anyway, thank you all for watching.